Hello, everybody. Dave Bleckman here, owner of Positive Negatives in the Annapolis Photography Workshop Group, and I want to welcome you to this week's edition of Free Weekly Wisdom. And again, these videos will stay up indefinitely, so no need to have to watch them by the end of the weekend like before. And you can go back as many times as you want to watch this. Feel free to share the link with other people. So, one of the questions I get asked a lot, well, actually, one of the first questions I get asked a lot by people are, do you prefer Dave or David? Well, my wife calls me Listen. So, any of those three work. My ex-wives, they all call me something different, but we won't get into that now. But Dave, David, anything else that you find that's endearing is okay with me. But the other question I get asked a lot of times is, how do I know when to convert a color picture into a black and white? Or not so much how do I know, but why, what determines if I'm going to convert something? And one of the reasons would be that maybe there's just not a lot of color to begin with in the image. So I find that going to a black and white or a monochrome, and by the way, black and white and monochrome are not the same thing. Monochrome are various shades of a single color. So an image that maybe has three or four shades of yellow is considered a monochrome, where black and white is colorless. It's black, whites, and grays. So there is a difference between monochrome and black and white. But if a picture doesn't have a whole lot of color to begin with, I may convert it to a black and white. Or if I want to give the picture more of a yesteryear look, more of a vintage look, I may go to black and white. If I want to give it something more dramatic, it may be more eerie or spooky or something, I may go with black and white. So this image that you're looking at right now is obviously a color image that I took at Nelson Ghost Town in Nevada. And this kind of lends itself to black and white. But the other reason I wanted to show you this is I want to show you the capabilities of the Lightroom masking tool. So look, there's a lot of different ways to convert your images to black and white. You can use Photoshop, you can use Lightroom, you can use Lightroom Classic, you can use Luminar, you can use On One, you can use Photolab, you can use Nik Silver Effects Pro. There's a lot of ways to do it, and personally, I usually use Nik Silver Effects Pro because there's so many wonderful options. But Lightroom Classic and Photoshop is incredibly powerful as well. And when I say Photoshop, I mean Adobe Camera Raw, because Adobe Camera Raw and Lightroom are essentially the same thing with a lot of the same tools. Some of the tools, some of the newer tools are kind of born in Adobe Camera Raw and then eventually make their way over to Lightroom Classic. So they're not equally identical, but pretty damn close. But we're going to stay in Lightroom Classic for this demonstration because a lot of you are using Lightroom Classic and you may not have Silver Effects Pro or On One or Luminar or Photolab. And some of you frankly, aren't that comfortable in Photoshop yet either, which you got to get comfortable in Photoshop because you need them both. Just think of one of the programs, Photoshop or Lightroom Classic, one of them is the oven and one of them is the stove. Okay, you're not going to boil water in the oven and you're not going to bake a cake on the stove. So you kind of need both. You know, you may want to sear that filet mignon on the stove top and then finish it in the oven, but you can't do everything on the stove top. You can't do everything in the oven. You can't do everything in Lightroom Classic, and you can't do everything in Photoshop. But Photoshop does a lot of things that Lightroom Classic doesn't do. And of course, Lightroom Classic has the cataloging feature and the keyword feature and a lot of things that Photoshop doesn't do. So anyway, I know it's probably confusing enough for you. But the first thing I'm going to do, and the first thing you should do with all your pictures, is I'm going to go to the Develop module, and I'm going to go down to Lens Correction. And you want to make sure that you click on Remove Chromatic Aberration. So if you look at the picture, when I click on this, you're not going to see anything. But when I go to Enable Profile Correction, take a look. So the original RAW file has a little bit of a pin cushioning to it. And when I click Enable Profile Correction, Adobe knows that I use my Nikon 28-300. It knows what the idiosyncrasies and the distortions are, and it fixes them. Now, what I do is when I import my pictures into Lightroom Classic through the Lightroom Classic import module, I automatically have lens correction and chromatic aberration done to every picture on the way in. So as an example, if I go to the next picture, you're going to see it's already checked off because I already do it on the way in. Same thing here. So all my pictures automatically have it done. But I undid it for this example to show you that it's something you need to do. Something else I'd recommend is if you go to the transform module and you click on auto, it also helps a little bit more with distortion and maybe you weren't quite level. So let's click auto, just a very slight move. Let me turn it back off. So the picture's leaning a little bit to the left, and when I click auto, it rotates it slightly to the right. Okay, so once again, before, after. Okay, cool, not a big deal. The next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the remove tool, and I have three choices. I have the clone, healing, and remove. I'm going to click remove, and it brings up this circle, okay? And I'm just going to go right around the sign, and of course in the center, and I'm going to hit remove and watch. Using AI, but this doesn't use AI credits, just uses built-in AI. And you're going to see it's going to get rid of that sign. Okay, so that's cool. So now that I did that, I can just click on these three lines here and go back into the edit mode and get rid of that. So what do I want to do now? Well, if I go to the basic module, I can click the auto button, and that kind of helps a little bit. Now to undo the auto button quickly, I can just go right here to tone, double click. So I'll do auto, and then if you want black and white, you can click black and white. Well, that's easy enough, but you've got one option. I mean, it gives you one black and white, and now you got to go to these sliders if you know what you're doing and maybe turn down some of the highlights and bring up some of the shadows. But I'm going to show you a better way. I'm going to click on black and white to turn it back off. Unfortunately, if you click on auto, you can't turn auto off. It stays there. You have to double click on tone. Whereas black and white, it's on, it's off. If you go to if you go to Adobe Camera Raw, you can click on and off auto. But here in Lightroom, if you click on auto and you want to undo it, you got to double click on tone. So instead of clicking this one black and white, watch this. If you go over here to these four boxes, okay, click to show profile browser. I can click here. And you have a lot of presets that are built in to this profile browser. So if you look up here, I've got Adobe Color, I got Adobe Monochrome, which again is one monochrome, landscape, standard, and play around with these. You may like if I want to keep this in color and I move this over to Adobe Landscape, I kind of like that. Without it, with it. It's a good head start. But if I scroll down here, you'll see there are 17 black and white presets. 17. So here's what you do. Here's how, well, turn that back on. This is what I do. I'll take my mouse and roll it over black and white number one, and I'll click on that to lock it in. Now, do I like one or do I like two? I think I like one better. So if I move my mouse off of here, one stays locked in, and I can now drop down to three. Do I like one or do I like three? I still like one. Now I'm going to move my mouse back off of the profiles. One is still locked in. You can see the border around it. Do I like one or do I like four? I still like one. Do I like one or five? One, five. I still like one. Do I like one or six? Still like one. Do I like one? Maybe it's number one for a reason. I don't know. Do I like one or seven? Well, look at the sky. Here's one and here's seven. More detail in the sky. So now I'm going to click on seven. Now I locked in seven. Do I like seven or eight? Do I like seven or nine? So I can go through all 17 of these and find the one I like. But for the sake of the video, I'm gonna stop it. Where did I land at? Number seven? I'm gonna stop here at seven. Okay. So now I got this black and white. And here's the next thing you want to do. Close this after you pick your profile, close the profile browser and go up here. I'm going to go up here to masking. Okay, I can hit Shift W on my keyboard. When you hold your tool over something and you see something in parentheses pop up, like to go to the crop tool, I can just hit Q on my keyboard. To go to the remove tool, Q also. Let's go to the masking tool, Shift W, or I can click here on the masking tool. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I can select the subject. You know, this is also pretty cool. You're looking at this picture. What is the subject? Is it the car or is it the building? Let's click on subject and let's just see what it picks. It picked the car. Okay. This isn't a bad thing to play around with because maybe the subject is the building, or maybe I wanted the building to be the subject, but Adobe selected the car, which may tell me that maybe the building isn't prominent enough and maybe I need to change things around. So this is also a good little training tool to teach you based on Adobe's algorithms and things like that and machine learning what it thinks is the subject. So I don't want to use that subject mask. So I'm going to click right here and I'm going to delete it. Okay. So I can click back over here, get out of the masking stuff. So I'm going to go back to the masking tool and I'm going to click landscape. And what's going to happen is Adobe is going to kind of separate out the sky, the ground, any architecture, which is the building, the mountains, any foliage. So just watch this. It's going to takes a little while. I mean, a little while, maybe less than a minute. There we go. So watch, it found the sky. And the reason the overlay is in red is I selected red. If I want to change the color, if I'd rather have like a dark blue, I can do that. And now my overlay becomes blue. But if you want to mask a blue sky and you use a blue overlay, you may not realize you're masking the sky. So let's go back over here to let's go to one of these little deep reds right here. Okay, so it found the sky. Well, do I want to work on the sky? Yeah, so I'm gonna click on this box. It found the mountains. Do I want to work on the mountains? Sure, I'll click on the box. How about the architecture? The building? Yeah, and there's something back here, maybe something on top of a truck, or maybe something behind the truck that it thinks is architecture, but I'll click on architecture. And vegetation? Yeah, found the vegetation and the natural ground. Now, what I find with natural ground is it also picks the mountains. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to click on all five of these and hit create mask. So let's start with the sky. So I click on sky, and what do I want to do? I want to go down to dehaze and just watch. Gets a little bit more dramatic and some clarity. And don't overdo it. Just keep an eye on what you're doing, and you can always go back and do more. Okay, or you can always undo a little bit, but that's pretty cool for right now for the sky. And I think I'm also going to take the highlights, the bright parts of the sky, and turn them down. See that? Okay, so that's cool. Let's go to architecture. Now, with architecture, it selected the building and this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click subtract, and I'm going to get a brush, which is this circle, and I'm just going to brush right over this. And look, I undid it. So it's not selected now. So all that's selected is the building. So what do I want to do to the building? Well, let's see. Let's maybe add a little bit of clarity to it. Gives it a little bit more punch. And maybe I want to take down the highlights because the roof is a little bright. I can bring down the highlights. See, that brings the roof down, some of the highlights. All right, that's okay. I'm all right with that. Let's go to vegetation. Okay, what do I want to do to the vegetation? I don't know. Let's see if it looks like brighter. Oh yeah, it looks like it snowed. No, I don't want to do that. Darker maybe? Maybe right about here, and then maybe I'll go add a little bit of clarity to it. Gives a little bit more punch. Now, when I go to natural ground, it also selected the mountains. So I'm going to subtract the mountains with a brush from natural ground. So watch, I just brush over the mountain. And it doesn't matter if I spill onto the building because the building's not selected. I am just unselecting the mountains because all I want to work on is the natural ground. So I can just brush over everything else that's red except the natural ground. And here we got, now that's all that's selected is the natural ground. So let's go over, and by the way, in case you didn't notice, as soon as I click on one of these pins, the overlay goes away. Or if I want to, I can just, if it's checked off, I can just uncheck it. Either way. So I want to turn the highlights down on the ground. I think the ground's a little bright and it didn't do as much as I wanted. So now I'm going to go to exposure and just watch the ground. Okay. I like that. So what's left? Well, let's go back to the mountains. And maybe I want to add a little. Now, clarity, I mean, the dehaze isn't just for sky. A matter of fact, when I do product photography, I dehaze a lot of my product photos. It adds punch. Well, this isn't color, so you're not going to quite see, but look what it's doing to the mountains. Kind of making them a little bit richer, a little bit darker, so I can maybe, if I like that, I can go back up to the shadows and just kind of up the shadows a little bit. Okay. All right. And I can go back up to these three lines. And now I'm back here. And I can see all the different sliders that the auto button did. And there's really nothing else here I need to do. If I want to blur out some of the background, let me just show you something. Let's say I wanted to make the car more prominent than the rest of this. I can go over here to lens blur and I can hit apply. And this is something that I realized through my trainings that a lot of people really don't know how to use or haven't used. So it's analyzing the picture. And now what I can do is see how the background just blurred? Watch. And that's what this little eyeball kind of does, is a before and after. So I can unapply it, reapply it. And I can change some of the bokeh. If I had some of that, some of those circles. Back in the film days, by the way, we didn't speak Japanese. The only Japanese we spoke back in the film day was Fuji. We didn't call anything bokeh. They were called circles of confusion. For some reason, when digital came along, they became bokeh. But you can change the look. So watch when I click on these, sometimes you'll see a little bit of a change in the blurriness in the background, but not so much on this picture. But I can up the blur amount if I want. Okay. So, and down here is my focus range. So watch, if I move it over here more towards the front of the pictures in focus, and if I move it, let me move it back over this way. Now the back end of my picture is in focus. So watch, just watch the car. If I want to make the car more prominent, I can move this until I have the car nice and sharp. You can see around the roof right now. I need to move it a little bit to the right. So now I'm picking up a little bit more of the car's roof, something like that. So now the car is sharp and the rest of the background is kind of on the soft side, which is kind of cool. Anyway, the point here is I wanted to show you when I determined if I want to make something black and white, and that's if there's not a whole lot of color to begin with, maybe. Or maybe I took a picture, a color picture, and something in the picture, maybe there was something red in the picture that was so glaring red. I mean, I could obviously down the saturation, but maybe there's just some colors in the picture that are just distracting, and I'm figuring, well, it's going to be better off just black and white. Or if I want to give it more of an eerie look or more of an eerie scene or something like that, like a ghost town, I can do that too. So, there's a lot of ways to do things. There's a lot of programs out there, but if you're just sticking with Lightroom Classic, I hope this helped maybe show you some ways to convert your picture into one of 17 different black and white presets, and then go to the masking tool and work on some of the different aspects of your picture. And of course, now I just showed you lens blur. And I don't know why here we go. Before, after, before, after. I kind of like them both ways. Actually, I kind of like everything kind of sharp, but personal preference. Anyway, thank you for watching this edition of Free Weekly Wisdom. And do me a favor, when you're done watching this on YouTube, right there on YouTube, just leave a comment. Just let me know how I'm doing. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, maybe a suggestion for another video. That's the only way I learn is from feedback. And oh, by the way, I have 2 slots left for my Sedona Landscape Masterclass workshop this coming October 4th through 10th. The $650 discount ended at the end of July, but I'm going to keep it going. If you want one of those 2 slots, write to me and say, Dave, I want one of those 2 slots. I want the $650 off. And then I'll talk to you about spreading out some payments and we'll get you on board. Okay. Anyway, thanks for watching this edition of Free Weekly Wisdom, and I'll see you again with another video next week. Take care.